Hello and welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint Show. I am your host, Jay Jones. Black Entrepreneur Blueprint was created specifically to educate and inspire Black entrepreneurs to launch, build, and grow successful businesses. Join us as we help build an economic power base in the Black community by promoting business ownership. If you are currently an entrepreneur or want to be an entrepreneur, we invite you to join us every week here at Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, episode number 304. I'm your host, Jay Jones, and today we have another outstanding show in store for you. Today we're going to be speaking with Miss Joy Donnell. She is the author of a new book titled Beyond Brand, Master Your Power, Joy, and Media to Live Your Legacy. Beyond Brand, Master Your Power, Joy, and Media to Live Your Legacy. Now, if Joy's name sounds familiar, it's because she was actually a guest on episode number 35, which has been 5 years ago. So we got a lot of catching up to do with Joy, and we'll see her progress and maturation as an entrepreneur. And we're going to discuss her book and how you can apply her book and her strategies and tactics for your business and also for your life in general. Now, before we get to today's episode, I just want to share a few things with the BEB family. First and foremost, I want to welcome all first-time listeners to Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. Welcome to the BEB family, and please stick around until the end of today's broadcast, and I'm going to share all my social media contact information and free entrepreneur resource links, such as the link to my new book, A New Black Wall Street, Circulating the Black Dollar Worldwide by Building Successful E-Commerce Businesses, and two of my platforms, Be Smart by Black and Hire Black Freelancers, that are designed to help circulate Black dollars in the worldwide Black economy. Now, let's get ready for the We are live with Miss Joy Donnell, storyteller and conversationalist. And Joy, can you please tell us what that means?
Well, I've always been entrepreneurial, and so you have to be able to scale yourself with elasticity and leverage, right? So I've always been a storyteller, and I've always been one to look deeply into conversations and spark them. So what that usually manifests as in my career is I'm either producing something, I'm writing something, I'm strategizing on something with groups of people and helping them see around corners with things, get things together in terms of brand and culture, intersectionality, or I'm speaking like I am right now on something or moderating other folks speaking about stuff. So that's pretty much what it looks like.
Oh, all right. So I'm going to read the stuff that you have written down on some of your other posts. So you're a producer, brand strategist, author, speaker, and you're dedicated to creating media that expands cultural legacy. So I'm telling you, this is amazing. And I want to let the BEB family know, if the name Joy Donnell sounds familiar, she actually was on episode number 35 back in March of 2015, family, 5 years ago. All right, more than 5 years ago. So there's been a whole lot of time in there, Joy. We got to find out what's been going on with you for those 5 years, all right?
Oh my goodness. I mean,
we'll break it down.
I'm not even sure.
So one of the major reasons that I definitely wanted you on today is because of your new book called Beyond Brand, which is right here. Excellent book. BEB family, definitely support it. And it's, well written, and it's very thought-invoking. And can you tell us a little bit about what Beyond Brand is about and what was the impetus for you to write the book?
I started getting compelled to have a different conversation actually 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, but I didn't really see how to have it in the landscape that was going on. Okay. I was one of those early adapters to social media, and I got really excited about it. when I saw social media popping up, because I had started feeling like media was a basic human need, just
Hmm.
like food and water and shelter and everything else. And just like every other basic human need, the quality of it counts, right?
Right.
So if you're getting bad water, it's going to affect your health. And I feel like if you're getting bad media, it's going to affect your health.
Right.
And when I started seeing social media become ubiquitous, I was like, oh, wow, we can really have a different conversation we've ever had, because we've all got public images.
Right.
And I started, talking to people about personal branding. And I was definitely one of the people that pressurized folks to develop a personal brand, right?
Hmm.
And then I watched social media keep developing, and I saw that people were slowly but surely um, losing their minds.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, to
And
put
so
it
I was
simply, you're right.
right,
Right.
and so I said, oh, there's this like deeper conversation I want to have, but I don't think that it's there yet. Like I don't think that we're saturated enough with this thing that I'm excited about, and that there's no barrier to entry over anymore. So probably about 2 years ago, I was doing speaking engagements, and I started getting asked these really interesting questions about authenticity. And it was specifically, as I build my personal brand, and as I build my personal brand on social media, how do I maintain my authenticity?
Mm.
Now, Jay, I was just like, could just be authentic. Like that was a no-brainer for me. Like,
Right.
okay, like you're either authentic or you're not.
You're not.
It's like trying to plan to be spontaneous. You can't pencil in spontaneity at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Like you are either spontaneous or you're not. You're either authentic or you aren't. It was very counterintuitive to me. And I got asked the question about 3 times before it sunk into me
Hmm.
that, oh, that conversation I wanted to have 10 years ago, we finally started catching up to it.
Gotcha.
So I know that this like, so like, wait, Joy, what are you talking about still? Okay, so like social media, building a personal brand,
Right.
authenticity, what's going on? And I'm like, okay, so I said all that to say this. Like, there's a whole lot of fake going on, and a whole lot of fake in the funk going on, and a whole lot of people building things that actually are not aligned with what they feel the calling in their heart is. But they've been doing it because they feel like they have to do it to compete, like they're supposed to do it to show up the way they're supposed to, that they've got to do it to even stand a chance. There are people that I know that they want to have really deep, thought-provoking conversations on social media and build a brand around mindset, but
Right.
then they're only getting engagement when they post bikini pics of themselves.
Right.
So what is that, and how do you reconcile that, and what do you let go of, and what do you lean into? And for me, the conversation beyond brand, beyond this pressure to build a personal brand and be this thing that you think you're supposed to be and post in the way that you think you're supposed to post, is actually about the cultural footprint that you want to live and leave, like what you want to actually contribute to culture in a way that it will benefit generations to come. It will benefit what needs to change right now, what needs to be talked about right now. And we all have this extraordinary, unprecedented opportunity to do it through these platforms that we have access to in a way that we've never had before.
Right.
And when I go to social media, I see an opportunity for a lot more people than just what have been the winners of history up until this point to
Right.
write the story. This is actually a chance for course correction for so many people who have been marginalized simply because of the body that they're born into, to
Hmm.
actually be able to bring forth story and narrative and dialogue and conversation that is going to expand our actual humanity.
Right.
And we need all of these stories, we need all of these narratives, because our stories, my friend Judith always says, our stories shape our beliefs, and our beliefs become our reality. And it is true. These stories dictate who gets put on a pedestal, who gets demonized, who gets monies funded into their neighborhoods and who don't. Like who gets a chance to pitch in front of a VC and who never even gets an opportunity to meet a VC.
Right.
It is so intricate about our world and our opportunities and what we've been building. And for me, this is a chance to reclaim
Right.
and completely change the course of what's been going up until this point.
That's a great definition of actually what the whole book is about and what the concept and the impetus behind it. So, who would you say right now, without uh, putting anybody on blast, who do you see out there right now that is authentic, that really has resonated with you on social media, and you believe that is the true person that you see portrayed?
Well, I mean, for one thing, you're authentic.
Beside me, right? Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I mean,
I am who I am. Yeah.
not to put you on blast. I mean,
Yeah.
we could talk about big time people. Like we could talk about like the Michelle Obamas, like
Right.
and stuff like that, and the Soledad O'Briens, and
Hmm.
people of that nature. And it's true. Like I do think that they maintain a certain level of authenticity to what they do,
Right.
how they use their voice and how they use their power and how they use their platforms. But Jay, I mean, you're authentic. There's lots of people who have really great, what I call more micro platforms as compared
Hmm.
to someone like, Michelle Obama,
Right.
that are showing up authentically every day and contributing to culture every day, that are leaving really amazing cultural footprints. What you've been doing with this podcast over the
Thank
course of years at this
you.
point. This
Yeah.
is a wealth of information. It's a catalog, it's a library.
Yeah. Yeah. I had I was joking with my daughters the other day. We were out hiking, and I was like, yeah, I said, uh, when I transition, I said, you know what? My grandkids and great grandkids can still listen to their grandfather and great grandfather. And my girls were like, oh, Dad, please. We don't even listen to you. Right.
But it's
But it's
true.
true.
It's so
Yep.
true.
Mhm.
Just like, I mean, anyone who is related to James Baldwin,
Yes.
because he's been gone, you can still pick up his writings and you can read through and you can get things that are relevant for right now that continue
Definitely.
to guide you. And so I just wanted to talk about how to use these public images
Okay.
in a way that's more aligned with your human spirit and what you actually want to do. And if you are one of those people that
Mhm.
feels like you have a calling, which I know not everyone does, and I'm not trying to pressurize people into finding a purpose when they don't feel like that's something important and vital to them, but some people do have this audacious belief,
Mhm.
you know, that their life is guided by purpose, that there's something bigger than themselves that they're supposed to do. And I felt like a conversation about what media actually is,
Mhm.
the way that it works, the way that it's interwoven, the way that it's funded, the way that you can utilize the revenue streams that already exist within it, even when you don't have a really big budget, the way that you can build community through it so that you are not just talking into, a cave or at a
Right.
wall, but you're actually creating dialogue and engagement and enriching people, and using this public image toward more than just trying to become a personal brand,
Right.
which is probably something that you should have as part of your arsenal within your business.
Mhm.
Whether you're an entrepreneur or a small business or a startup or whatever, you're going to have brand elements and personal brand elements as a part of how you communicate what you're doing and continue to build. But it doesn't, for me, it doesn't just end at achieving that personal brand,
Right.
because I mean, really, a personal brand, it's just the true definition of a personal brand, a brand, is a public image that is a fiscal entity. Okay,
Right.
so if your public image is fiscally solvent, it brings in more money than you put
Mhm.
into it, right?
Right.
And is actually an asset in that way and not a liability, then it's become an actual brand.
Man.
That's what a brand is.
Right.
And corporations need brands because they're not people.
Right.
So the only way that corporations are going to give you some idea of peopleness is by creating a brand that has kind of human attributes and kind of feels like a person and kind of like walks like a person. And you're like, oh, they're like me, right? And so you relate to it as a person, even though it's not a person, it's a trick of the
Right.
mind. It's a way to make it relatable to a human being. And that's all fine and good. But when you're an actual person,
Right.
um, you can kind of you can circumvent that thought. You don't have to lean into mimicry of a human being because you're already a human being. So let's just go ahead and amplify our human advantage that we have within this conversation of brand and storytelling and narrative. And that's really how to go about using all this media access to
Mhm.
build cultural legacy, a cultural footprint, a personal legacy.
Personal, yeah. Now, you had mentioned about being aligned, your brand being aligned and being authentic. What do you think are some of the major causes or reasons why people's brands are not authentic, why they don't stay aligned, and why they may veer off per se? What are your thoughts on that?
Most of the time, I see it start with just not even actually tapping into their passion,
Okay.
right? So they're not actually tapping into the thing that's going to give them energy on a consistent basis to be able to show up, keep having the conversations and have them in a dynamic way that gets other people to be like, oh, wait, what's going on? This sounds really like, this is really dope. This is really cool. And it even encourages you to keep being creative with the way that you message it, right?
Hmm.
So when I talk to people and I'm like, okay, well, what is this that you've been doing? And they're just kind of like, oh, well, so like I did this because I felt like I had to do that. And I was supposed to do this. And I talked to someone over here and they said I had to do this. And now I've got this thing.
Right.
And I'm not really proud of it, but
Mhm.
it's turnkey or I'm trapped in it or I've walked myself into a corner with it.
Right.
Right. So it's no different than when you see celebrities have meltdowns and like, shave their heads and things like that and
Right.
are having very public moments with very private emotional issues on TMZ
Hmm.
because everything around them has created something that is actually not aligned with who they are and how they want to be every day and what they're passionate about.
Right.
So that's like the main thing. If you've put together an image that you feel is bigger than you,
Right.
well, that's one thing,
Okay.
right? If you put together an image where you can't ever be human
Right.
because what you've put forth is something superhuman. So
Mm.
when you have moments that are really, really human, you don't even know how to how to get in front of the camera and create some content because you're so not that thing, that
Right.
person that you keep putting out on social media every day. It's really that simple. Like it sounds like it would be such an easy thing to avoid, but with the pressure that we have in our society, it's actually one of the easiest traps to fall into.
Definitely. And speaking of traps, I want you to speak to this in reference to younger kids that are on social media right now that may not be thinking about their legacy or what they're putting out there. What would you say to a teenager, say 14 or 15, that's big on social media and is doing stuff 14 and 15-year-old kids do? Some silly stuff and some, good stuff, but the mindset of a 14 or 15-year-old
Right.
as it pertains to when you move into quote unquote corporate America or you
Uh-huh.
go out on your own. So what would you tell them or give them some advice on what they're putting out on social media right now as it pertains to their future?
Well, I would say keep your account private if you can, because I don't, I just personally don't think that, it's necessarily a good idea to have a public account when you're still a minor.
Right.
Because there's so many predators out there in lots of different ways, so that's my main thing is that like keep your account private, you
Hmm.
know um remember that you can always archive things. It doesn't have to permanently stay up and stay posted,
Right.
and forgive yourself and be kind. I mean, because I know personally I'm really glad that I was not documenting everything that I was doing when I was 13, 14,
Right.
18,
Right. Yeah.
19,
Absolutely.
even 20, 22, like the way that I thought about things when I was 15, 16. They're so extraordinarily different than
Right.
how I think about things now. Because I was learning.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
think that, too, for us as a society, we don't give enough credence to that as kids. Like we have this tendency to kind of like, go into the cocoon and emerge a butterfly, and then we start to tell a story about how we were born a butterfly,
Right.
we
Right.
never had caterpillar moments. Type of thing.
I like that analogy. Yeah. Yeah.
And it just doesn't work that way for anyone. It's the process of learning and growing, and knowledge is such a very particular thing. So I would say, you're going to learn as you grow. If you're fortunate enough to keep
Right.
living, you're going to learn, and
Yeah.
eventually life shows you how to live it, right? if
Yeah.
you if you have enough time to be on this planet. So in the meantime, keep your account private.
Mm-hmm.
um,
I hear
you
you.
know, maybe even have a username that makes it a little more difficult for a future employer to find you, type of thing. Like it doesn't have to be your exact name, so that when they just Google your name, here you go, and pop up.
Right.
And if you do actually, have that type of account, like if you're going to have your name on it as
Hmm.
you are, keep in mind that this is something that people are going to use to vet you. And so treat it
Exactly.
accordingly. Treat it as something that is professional, a professional image that you're putting out into the world, or at least the part of your public image that you're putting out into the world that you feel comfortable with more people having access to than less people having access to.
Yeah, that's great advice because I tell my girls that all the time. You're young, you're having a good time, and that's great. I said one of my first cousins, he's like my brother, was a big HR guy for Wells Fargo,
Mm.
and he's like, dude, the first thing we do before we hire somebody, social media. We're checking
Right?
everything, what type of character they have, And so I just wanted to highlight that, and I knew you were probably going to answer like that because even if you're not thinking about branding, you're creating an image, even if you're not thinking about creating an image. So you got to be cognizant of that as it pertains to you individually. And obviously, if you're in business, because I'm telling you, if social media was out when I was 21 years old, I might not be running Black Entrepreneur Blueprint right now. They
I
like,
mean, can we talk? Okay. Like,
oh man, I know, but your kids and you learn. And so I think it's a great advantage that kids have too, if you know how to leverage it and use it to your benefit, because it can also be detrimental. And the question is, like you said, how much do you want people to have access to you? And as you continue to grow and mature, and you could be 40 years old and be immature, and,
right,
and people are watching
right,
you melt down
right.
right now.
There
Yeah.
are people that they've built whole brands like that right now. That
Yep.
is what they do every day. They go on IG Live and they just have a breakdown. And that
Mm,
is what, like people rely on them to do. So, I think it's also too of, if you are very, very young and you're in a place where you have an idea that you know what you want to do. Like if you already know you want to be a director, you want to be a performer, you want to be an artist, you want to be in working in international relations or whatever that is,
right.
you do also have an extraordinary opportunity to use the platform at a very young age to start building
So,
out and
right.
trying things, right? Like actually taking risk in a way, shooting a little video, editing it, putting it up, seeing what people say about it, and building your armor for criticism even,
Right.
right? Like
Definitely.
because that's something that you're going to need as an entrepreneur. If you're going into something like that, you've still got to be entrepreneurial about it. And part of what you need as an entrepreneur is to be able to have that armor,
Yeah.
like not just be decimated immediately by criticism, even sometimes sift through it,
Right.
sift through what those detractors are saying. Those detractors sometimes will have they can teach you some things
Hmm.
about what's going on. They help you monitor and maybe catch something that you were missing in terms of the overall conversation and dialogue. So
It's funny you mentioned that because years ago, you and I were talking, and we were talking about my book had come out, A New Black Wall Street, and somebody made a comment and said the book isn't worth the paper is written on because everybody should be doing Bitcoin or
Right.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I was like, and the dude was coming at me on on
Yep.
Facebook, and I'm like, and you said, you know what, use that to show people how you respond. And so as entrepreneurs,
Mhm.
like I said, I get bad reviews on things and stuff, like not that many. And thank goodness, because I think because I'm authentic, so people
Yeah.
they see what they get, they know what they get. But it's true. So yeah, you have to be very leery. Now, as an entrepreneur, Joy, what are some of the things that you think, or can you give us some examples of how to grow your brand? So say Black Entrepreneur Blueprint or your brand personally, give us some idea what you can do for the BEB family to help grow your brand in a positive way, obviously, not
Okay.
by shaving your head.
I mean, and we can even talk about it in relation to like what's going on right now, because I know a lot of
Okay.
people are like, what do I even do right now? We're in quarantine. Well, the basic principles are still the same. You
Right.
know, like the things that I focus on are the things that you need in order to have longevity in a way that you maintain support for yourself and you maintain some joy. You stay tapped into your inner joy,
Right.
and this was a very interwoven conversation for me because I feel like it's difficult to keep doing the work of any kind of, anything, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether you're just leaning into activism, like social change, whatever that is. If the despair becomes greater than the joy,
Right.
you cannot maintain the energy that you need to keep doing it, right?
Mhm.
And so you have to have certain types of support around yourself. And I think that a lot of times what happens, especially for entrepreneurs of color, is that we end up in these silos, right? Like we end up very isolated. And power itself is not corruptive. It's this isolation with your power, I think, is corruptive. Is
Okay.
when you feel like you got to do everything by yourself because you haven't been able to find the proper support. You never be able to grow the way that you need to grow if you don't actually have duplication. It's
Right.
like, so the main thing with the brand, like what all this branding stuff is about, the thing that keeps the brand fiscal is actually duplication and distribution. Just the same thing that helps an entrepreneur be fiscal is duplication and
Mhm.
distribution, right? It's like the content doesn't mean anything without distribution.
Exactly.
So this is constantly about how do you actually create the things that are going to help you distribute and help you stay strong and focused and maintained. This is the time to build community. It's
Definitely.
always time to build community, but this is especially the time to build community. Community is an evergreen conversation.
That's
Okay.
it.
You
That's
have got to find people who are like minded, who are aligned, who are looking for what you are putting out there. And that's one of the reasons why I say start with your passion,
right.
right? If you start with your passion, and then you bring into the conversation these three of your core principles, your core values in relation to that passion. You will
Hmm.
find that where your passion aligns with those three core values is exactly where your main target audience is right there in the middle.
Right.
And
Exactly.
so those are the people that you start to talk to first. When you are creating with them in mind, when you are putting the content out there, you're talking to them about the thing that you're doing, whether it's a product or a service, with them in mind. It shifts all the vocabulary around what you're talking about, right? It
Right.
helps you get specific. You're not talking in generalities and big, huge, oh, I just want to throw spaghetti at a wall. You start to talk very specifically about what you're doing, why you're doing it, in a way that they're going to feel it and have an emotional reaction, an emotional response.
Mhm.
And now that you've got that emotionality going between each other, they feel your heart. You are getting a genuine emotional response from them. You're actually building community now,
Right.
right? It's like, so for me, one of the main things is to make sure that you are actually building community and not just talking at people, but actually talking to them.
Right.
I would say, like, don't rely on just social media to be your main form of conversation with everyone.
Hmm.
Have a mailing list.
Right.
Have a way to talk to people directly through email or text message, at
Right.
least. Like, you'd be surprised. It's not very difficult to, like, it have people sign up for SMS, especially if it's going to actually be something really beneficial to them. So I know
Definitely.
the whole people, they are like mindset coaches,
Mm.
and they have built amazing distribution mailing lists for themselves through text message. And they just text something positive. People pay for the service.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a lot, it's a minimal amount of money, but
Right.
they go ahead and get a message directly sent to them every morning, right? So they
Right.
wake up with this text message waiting for them, or this email waiting for them. And it's going to help them go ahead and get their mindset right for the day, think about what it is they want to accomplish. That is building brand, but that is building community, and that is building benefit, and that is building an actual personal legacy, that cultural footprint that I'm talking about. So for me, like, community, that having your core people,
Mm.
if you've got something going on right now and it hasn't been getting a lot of momentum because of everything that's going on, like, so,
Mm.
in terms of the economy and the quarantine and everything else, this is now a time for you to reach out to your core people. You know who your
Mm-hmm.
core people are. You know who those people are that if you're like, hey, will you post this for me? I need
Right.
some extra eyeballs on this.
Right.
You know exactly who those people are within your, immediate circle, that they're gonna be like, oh yeah, girl, go ahead, send it to me. Oh yeah, dude, like, go ahead, give it to me. Make
Yeah.
it
Yep.
easy on your people. Don't make them think too hard about how to help you. Go ahead and write out exactly what they need to just copy and paste.
Please.
Okay. So
Exactly.
they can literally just copy and paste it
Mm.
and put it up. If you want to go ahead and really turn it into a kind of like an event, use the algorithm to build upon it. Ask everyone to post around the same time. So say, hey, like, I'm going to have this going on Friday, sometime between 11 and 11:30 a.m., Eastern Standard Time. Can you post exactly this to your Facebook or your Twitter or your Instagram? Tag me in it, right?
Right.
And like, get this going, and send this to, to this many people. You can go ahead and coordinate. If you
Mm-hmm.
actually have community, you keep building community, and you talk to your people, you know who your core people are, and you talk to them about how to go ahead and build this into an event. And then
Mm-hmm.
once you got the event going, I'm just using these as examples, you can
Right.
still go ahead and go to your overall community, the people that you wouldn't necessarily, text or call
Right.
directly and ask them to do whatever for you, but go ahead and show that larger community that there's momentum going on.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be surprised how
Right.
many people will start to pay attention, just because they see momentum happening from other things, right? And so then they'll even be like, oh wait, okay, so so and so posted about this, and so and so posted about that, and I'm gonna post about it too, because
Mm-hmm.
now they have like permission to post about it. Like, maybe they were feeling away, they were kind of shy about, they didn't want to seem like they were standing you,
Right.
too much,
Right.
type of thing. But once they see that there's this momentum and this permission, they will even participate in ways without you even having to ask them. It's the core of everything. Like, you've got to figure out the ways to
Mm-hmm.
create community and have distribution of what you're doing through that community and to that community and with that community.
Okay. Excellent. That's excellent. BEB family, take note of that answer, because that's all wrapped up nice and pretty for you, because that was an excellent reason and explanation. And I wanted to ask you this, Joy, in terms of your book, right? We had talked a while ago off the air. How do you think your book affects your community, and does it do anything else for you? Does it give you more, quote unquote, even though you have it, credibility? And how can people leverage your books to build their brand?
Wow, I think that it, yeah, did a lot of things that I didn't even plan for it to do or know that it would. I mean, like, my mind blew a little bit just even like thinking about all the things that have happened as you asked me that. Um, it definitely has shifted conversations for myself, even
Mm-hmm.
in relation to support around me. Like
Right.
I have always encouraged clients to do these things I just talked about.
Right.
And I've been involved in the work of a lot of that. I did not always necessarily uh, build it as intricately for myself. And when I saw, but I was just in ways I didn't realize that I was.
Mm-hmm.
So when the book came out, there was a whole level of momentum that just enveloped the book that
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't prepared for. I didn't know what was going to happen. I, had not planned for it to happen. People talked to other people about the book for me.
That's great.
People posted about the book. People got it. People read the intro and started crying,
Yeah.
and sent me messages that just gave me so much energy. Uh, Books, I think, always contribute to credibility, even if that's not what you're seeking from it, even if it's not a vanity project for you. And
Right.
I really sat down and I wrote this book. It's dedicated to my niece, who
Mm-hmm.
is turning 20 next month, and
Okay.
she's studying international relations. And I literally sat down, Jay, and I said, if I were to go, if I were to poof, evaporate after
Right.
this book is printed, what would I want to be in there? What's the love I would want to channel into the
Mm-hmm.
pages for her?
Wow.
And that is what I sought to channel. And I
Yeah.
hoped that if I did that, that anyone that picked the book up would be holding that kind of love, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would be holding that amount of love. And every kind of dot that I could connect with it and the ways that I could explain it. It's not perfect because I'm not a perfect vessel,
Right. Exactly.
but I wanted to have a really intricate conversation for what I call like the storytellers, the creatives, the disruptors, the innovators, and this is what entrepreneurs are. This is what, the people who are trying to shift the legacy of their families. This is what you're doing, and we have this media tool that can help us build community in a way we've never built before. And I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to talk about what that looks like and how that shows up. So yeah, I was astounded by the support that I got internationally, nationally, locally, out of LA, out of New York. I was amazed by the way that people wanted to put together events for me around
Yeah.
the book. And I got extraordinary visibility from big influencers and things like that without actually spending dollars, without actually like spending marketing dollars. So
Mm-hmm.
I was able to put marketing into other areas because I was getting this really amazing support and lift from community. So I'm actually walking my talk in that way.
There you go.
And I think that one of the things that writing everything down can do is it starts to actually put your ideology
Mm-hmm.
and your focus and your motivation and your passion into context for people
Right.
in a way that they can get it, they can start to understand it without you having to be right there in front of them,
Wow. Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the thing that we've been trying to do this whole time as human beings. It's the reason why we painted on walls hundreds of
That's right.
thousands of years ago, because we're leaving messages. That's what all this media is. And so I do say, if there is something that you are passionate enough about to
Mm-hmm.
really like devote your life force toward it, write a book.
Yeah.
Write a book about it. Books never go out of style.
Mm-hmm.
And if a book, is writing a book is feeling too daunting to you, you're more of a talker, then talk your book.
That's it.
Okay.
Talking.
We have transcription services now. Like you can talk your book. You can literally hold up this phone and you can talk your book out, and it will go ahead and type every single last word out for you, and you can edit it later, but just
Exactly.
put it into some sort of context that speaks true to why you're doing what you're doing, what your philosophy is. And it's those philosophies that create movements and shifts and change culture and affect communities. It is that type of, of passion being put into something, a document like a book that is, I mean, it's incomparable.
And it makes you think too, and it also gives the author some clarity too. I know when I'm writing books, it's like I have all of these ideas, and then I'm like, okay, now I have to bring them all together and lay them out in a way that makes sense. Uh, Now it's funny because you said something in your book that it's not in any type of chronological order.
Yeah.
It's your yeah. So what made you decide? And I can't remember the exact wording that was in there, but what made you decide to write the book that way? Was it just based on different things you wanted to get out, or what was the impetus behind that?
Well, it was a couple of things. For one thing, I didn't want chapters that were so long and daunting that people didn't feel like they could get through them. I was, again, being a student of culture, right? Like, I was looking around at what's going on. We're into a lot of micro content
Right.
right now.
Mhm.
And the micro content is thriving, and it will continue to thrive as long as we have these devices and we're looking at screens, because we can only look at screens for so long. But that's
Right.
also starting to translate into the way that we look at tangible objects like paper.
Hmm.
So I wanted to put things into kind of bite-sized thoughts. And it wasn't even so much for me to indoctrinate people to the way that I think about things. Yeah, I did have to explain sometimes how I got to where I got to because I've had my life experience, right?
Right.
But I wanted to, more than anything, put things into tangible, digestible conversation, and then it allowed the reader to be able to have a conversation with themselves about what they think about that and connect the
Right.
dot with it. So yeah, if
Yeah.
you read it from beginning to end in chronological order, you'll get something very specific out of it. But if
Mhm.
you are the type of person that you need to jump around, and I know some people like that, some people like to go ahead and read the back first, read, the
Right.
end first. I wanted to be able to, accommodate that as well. They wanted to jump around into the middle, or wait, oh, wait, okay, now that I read this, maybe I need to go back and look at this thing over here. I felt like it would kind of be a choose your own adventure type of thing. And people will get from it, I think, what they need to get from it. And that is a part of the feedback that I have been getting, is that, like, some people are like, I just went through it the way that I was feeling like I needed to, and I
Right.
got exactly the order of information that I needed. And
Mm.
I ended up journaling about things exactly the way that I needed to journal about them, and I don't know. That's
Now
I
it's
definitely,
great.
I'm weird that way.
It's great because it's funny. That's how I didn't quite finish yet, but that's how I'm reading. I'm actually jumping around. So I'm
Yeah,
not reading, from page 1 to 300, and was it 317, 312 or whatever?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm jumping around. I'm looking at a table of contents. Yeah, let me read that tonight. Let me read that. But I do like the way it's very well written and very informative. I just want to touch base real quick on when I asked you about leveraging your book, because years ago, I'm a guy that buys domains, right? I probably have
Mhm.
close to 200 domain names. Anytime I think of something, I'm buying a domain. So one of the things that I noticed also when I wrote my book was the you get people once again that are in your community that want to help you get your message out to the other people. And so I got this domain name years ago, and it's my book is my business card. Not that you want to give these out like business cards, but
Right.
you can use that, number one, to convey your thoughts, your ideologies, your processes. So if you're an entrepreneur that you work with a specific process, you can document your process. So when somebody comes to do business with you, hey, I read your book, so all right, I don't have to give you the primer here. You know how I do business. And one of my first books years ago was Mortgages Made Simple. It was for first-time home buyers when I had a mortgage
Mhm.
company, and I documented the process and stories, and I added stuff in there like that. But when people read the book, what it did was the competition for them to deal with my company versus somebody that's just running ads over there. And if they got my quote unquote free book, then when they came to me, I knew it was a done deal, it was a wrap. because the book basically pre-framed exactly what's going to happen in our relationship as we go through this mortgage process. But I want to just let the BEB family know, if you have a book in you, your book can be leveraged, as Joy was saying, for all types of things. So it doesn't matter what type of business you're in. If you're looking to build your brand, if you're looking to, get more customers, and it's not as daunting. And I want to ask you about writing the book too, Joy.
Okay.
It's not necessarily as daunting as it may appear. Now this book right here, this is a well-written book, right? Now, but other books, I've seen 60-page books that have gotten tremendous traction.
Yeah.
So one of the things I wanted to talk about, Joy, was what is your process to writing a book? I mean, you don't have to, you could just break it down for us in terms of laying out your thoughts, and how did you put everything together to turn into something as beautiful and amazing as this?
Twitter. Would you believe it?
Really? Really? You got to expound on that now. Hey, family, I just want to separate this interview into two sections. So real quick, I'm going to give you all my social media contact information and my resource links. So my new book is out, A New Black Wall Street, Circulating the Black Dollar Worldwide by Building Successful E-Commerce Businesses. You can go to anewblackwallstreet.com. Pick yourself up a copy. It's $14.95 plus shipping and handling. Now, if you want the e-version, it is only $9.95. Now, if you're real serious about building a successful, sustainable e-commerce business, in addition to the book, I have a new implementation program, which is a 12-week program to help you build a physical products brand and or a digital products brand. And it's called Brand Builder Academy Elite. So go to bbaelite.com to check out and register for the program, bbaelite.com. Now, the program was originally $397. This coronavirus has hit everybody, so I know people's money is funny. So I took it down to $197, and now I'm doing another promotion. If you use the coupon code BBAELITE100, that's going to take $100 additional dollars off, and now your investment is only $97. So bbaelite.com and use the coupon code BBAELITE100 when you enroll. Now, in addition to that, guys, I talked at the beginning of the show about two platforms I've created to actually help circulate black dollars in the black community. The number one is besmartbyblack.com. If you are a black product producer that wants to sell to black consumers, upload your product information to besmartbyblack.com. It is free. besmartbyblack.com. Now, I didn't forget about you freelancers. So if you're a freelancer that does anything on Fiverr.com or freelancer.com, I created another platform titled hireblackfreelancers.com. Once again, it is free. HIRE, hireblackfreelancers.com. Upload your freelance talents and connect with black consumers and black businesses that are looking to hire black freelancers. Now, all of this is a mouthful, but if you go to bebconnect.com, bebconnect.com, it is a page on my website that has all of those resource links and information. Now, as for my social media contacts, if it's anything long you want to connect with me, hit me at my email, jjones@Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. That's JAYJONES. Facebook, go to Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. Twitter, jjones001. That's JAYJONES 001. Instagram, jjones for real, JAYJONES, the number 4, REAL. YouTube, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, family. Go to YouTube, type in Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, hit the subscribe button and the like button. I got additional content that comes out on YouTube that is not on the podcast. Yes, the podcast does come out on YouTube, but there's also additional content. Hit me up on LinkedIn. Just go to LinkedIn, look for J Jones Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. And if you want to be included in the BEB text lines for notifications and special reminders, text BEB to 555-888. BEB to 555-888. Also, everything I just mentioned to you, contact information and resources, go to bebconnect.com. Let's get back to the interview.
Okay, so I've had my Twitter account now about 11 years.
Okay.
I think that I just had my 11-year Twitterversary.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I ended up getting on Twitter was because I had a client at the time who had a book.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an extraordinary book. I mean, it was about overcoming childhood abuse and just an extraordinary amount of things. And I said, look, you got to go on Twitter and start marketing your book and building community around your book. And she very legitimately came back at me and said, well, Joy, you aren't on Twitter.
Right.
You ain't got time to be on Twitter. What makes you think I have time to be on Twitter? You ain't tweeting, you know?
Right. Right.
You just expect me to just drop my life and just be on Twitter 24/7. And so I said, okay, challenge. I
Right.
will accept that, you know. And I went on Twitter. There was already a Joy Donnell. I was like, oh, I want to do something a little more like tongue in cheeky, you know, like I was, you know, constantly working in publicity and public relations and storytelling and whatnot and public speaking. And I was like, oh, I want to build my public speaking as well. So, oh, do it in public. I'm like, oh, but that's it. But
Right.
I
Right.
looked, Do It in Public was available, and doitinpublic.com was available, and then Do It in Public was available across like all of the social platforms. So I got Do It in Public, and I
Mm-hmm.
really started building Do It in Public to just start like talking about things that I wanted to do, you know, like public speaking about, things I was reading, what I was seeing in, you know, in storytelling and narrative and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started realizing that if I was using that 140, back then it was 140 character limit,
Right.
to kind of hone in my thoughts, it could actually help me get my thoughts really succinct. Like if
Mm-hmm.
I could take a complex thing, it's almost like writing a poem. I mean,
Right.
not as elegant, but it's almost like writing poetry. If you can take something really complex and will it down to a 140 character bite,
Right.
then you can probably explain that to a good amount of people really, really quickly. And you make something really complicated easier. The easier it is to understand, like the easier it is to say it, the easier it is to read it, the easier it is
Mm.
people think to do it. Right. It's like, so it was about how to make these complicated things more easy.
Right.
So my Twitter account throughout the years, I was constantly like tweeting out these thoughts
Mm-hmm.
and going ahead and constructing them, seeing what people were responding to. Some things got people really, really amped up. They started having all these comments and questions. People were like, oh, can you expand on that? Oh my God, I was thinking about that the other day. This is how this connected with me. So I was constantly using Twitter to perfect the way that I was talking about something really quickly, seeing how it was resonating with other people, what it brought up for other folks. And then sometimes I would even take the tweet and I would screenshot it and I would take it onto Instagram as a
Mm-hmm.
meme, and
Right.
then create a whole other conversation on Instagram with it. Someone would end up sharing it to their Pinterest board or a Tumblr, and then it would create a whole other, you know, situation with it, or end up on Facebook, and there would be a whole other set of dialogue around it. So I actually was like monitoring what was going on and what people were getting really excited about
Wow.
over the course of years. And then I kind of took the things that I was most passionate about, what I saw people had the most questions around, what really, you know, amped people up. And that gave me the outline for the framework for what I wanted to discuss.
Wow.
Where I saw people were having disconnects, what was overwhelming people, what was seeming kind of foreign, and no matter what they were, you know, reading or getting pressurized to do, it still wasn't making sense, you know. And so I've had a lot of people come back to me and say, this is the first time I've actually understood what brand is. And
Right.
I've been trying to
Right.
build a brand for 5 years because I was told that I had to. And
Right.
now for the first time, I actually know what it is I'm trying to do. And I understand how that thing is different and separate from me as an actual person and a human being.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, so this Twitter, interestingly enough, Twitter was a
That's
lot of my process. and,
that's
and
cool.
I kept track of all my content. And
Mm.
I constantly recycle and repurpose and redistribute my content, you know.
Right.
And to go back a little bit earlier to what you were saying about a book, you
Mm-hmm.
know, like Jay, you know, like when you've got a book, once you've actually got a book, even if it's only 60 pages,
Right. Right.
you've got content
Mm-hmm.
for years if you know
Exactly.
how to break it up, right? And
Exactly.
I'm one of those people, everything can be content. Okay, like every single thing can be content. I could actually take a shot right now of my setup to have this conversation with you and turn that into a whole post and conversation about, okay, hey, entrepreneur storytellers, as you're going onto these Zoom calls, this is how you like set up your lighting. You can turn anything into content, right?
Exactly.
But if you've
So
already got 60 pages, 20 pages, even if you've just been writing down notes for yourself, you can go through that what I call your content bank. It
Right.
is a part of your wealth, is a part of your assets if you turn them into
Mhm.
your assets, and start to figure out how to actually turn that into digestible things that keep your message going,
Mhm.
spreading, and finding community and building community.
That's a
You
great,
know,
that's a great point. Great point. So the BEB family, make sure that light bulb is going off on your head right here. Take this down because it's funny now you use social media and Twitter. What I do is I'll take my phone, and if I ever lost this phone, I have it backed up, obviously. All of my thoughts, um, BEB show topics. So if I'm talking to somebody, oh, that's a great show topic. All of my content ideas are in my phone and obviously in the cloud. But just getting content, and that's what I tell people all the time. I said, in order to communicate with with your people, you got to have content. So content can come from all types of places. Just today on our show, I probably could do 3 shows based off of some of the conversation that we have today. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Just taking that content and something that you said and elaborated on, and I could create a whole show off of that. But I wanted to ask you too, and I don't want to stick on the writing aspect too much, but what do you think of some of the common traps for aspiring writers or roadblocks, you think? Because when you sit down and when you look at the end copy of this, the end word, you're like, man, I can't do this. But so what do you think of some of the common traps for aspiring writers besides being daunting? I know that's one of them. You think it's a
Right.
daunting task, but what else do you think would impede prospective authors to not move forward with their projects?
I usually find it as perfectionism.
Okay.
Perfectionism is just fear dressed up in haute couture.
Right.
You know, like
There you go. That's true. That's true. I
okay,
like that.
it's just right. It's just fancy fear. That's all it is. It's like, oh, you don't feel like it's fear because you're all like, oh no, but I'm a perfectionist and it's got to be perfect. Like
Right.
it almost feels like a virtue, but it's not. Like
Right.
it just kind of tricks you into a different type of mediocrity.
Right.
It
Nah,
keeps
that
you from
makes
going
sense.
ahead and moving forward. And there's nothing has been perfect. Nothing that's been created by a human has ever been perfect.
Imperfect. Exactly.
Okay. It's like, and there are the people, even Maya Angelou, before
Mhm.
she left, there's stuff that she said she would have gone back and she edited the crap out of it if she could
Exactly.
have. But where she was at the time when she wrote it, that was the authentic place where she was. And I
Exactly.
think that, we forget about that when it comes to writing. I'm like Cezanne painted like the same mountain like 50,000 times.
Right.
And every time he found something different to paint within it. But something about the written word, we act like once it's written and it's printed, it's dogma. And
Right.
like you can't ever go back and tweak it. But no, you can have like a second edition of your book
Exactly.
and a third edition of your book. You can even say, hey, when I wrote this 20 years ago, I thought that. And now
Right.
I know this. And so it would change all of that. It's like us trying to judge comedians by the joke they told 30 years ago.
Exactly.
If you were at a different level of maturity 30 years ago.
You talking
So
about Kevin Hart? No, I'm
but I even think that Eddie Murphy was like, he wouldn't have worn that same outfit,
exactly. That leather get up. Yeah.
But that was oh my good, that was the bomb when
Back
he
in
did
the
it.
day.
That slapped. Okay, so
Right.
like it it made sense at the time. And so
Right.
this perfectionism thing of you being like, oh gosh, but is it going to stand the test of
Just the
time or
time.
whatever? It doesn't need to. Like, just go ahead and get it
You
out.
did it. Right.
You can tweak it later. You can edit it, but you know what? You can't edit. You can't edit a blank page.
That's it. You can't edit nothing. Because I have
You can't launch
I
something that ain't launching.
that's what I tell people all the time. I'm like, I was talking to this one friend of mine, tons of ideas, smart guy. And yeah, man, I'm still researching it. I'm like, bro, you've been researching this whole thing, this business opportunity or business idea for 2 years. Come on, man. Yeah, do something. You're never going to get the feedback unless you actually go out and do something. So all of your supposition and your ideas, you don't know. You might be dead wrong. But until you put it out there into the universe and let the universe tells you what it is, then you can move from that point. And so your first iteration may not be as good as your second and as your third, but you got to get, like you said, something out there. My goodness, man.
Mozart did not write a perfect concerto every time he sat down at the harpsichord. Like
Exactly.
Prince had music that he thought was unusable. We listened to it and we're like, oh no, that's still cool. That's
That's pretty
Prince,
cool, right?
but like Prince didn't want that out.
Mm-hmm.
So it only happens. You only get to the things that you're really excited about through trial and error.
Right.
And I think that's the message that gets lost. You got to actually do the trial and
Right.
the error. Like the error is a big part of the trial. And then you go back
Right.
and you tweak it and you fix it. And that's even what I find when I hear people say that they don't have the time. Like now, there are
Right.
some people that literally they do not have the time. They're raising a family of 4, they're working 3 jobs, they do
Right.
not have the time.
Right.
But a lot of people, when they say they don't have the time, what they really mean is they don't know where to start,
Right.
So they don't understand, start where you are. Where
Mm-hmm.
you are is a legitimate place. I know I talk a lot about here and about the power of here and the power of right now and actually being able to recognize what's around you. But there's so many opportunities that we miss because we're waiting for destination.
Right.
We're waiting for destination to magically happen. We
Mm-hmm.
have like this, destination lust,
Right. Right.
and
Right.
so like we want to get to the destination, and then the destination is supposed to magically make everything fall into place as if you do not have to work toward the destination.
Right.
You start where you are. You start to look at what support system, what support base do you have around you? Who do
Mm-hmm.
you have in your arsenal that, that's really on your side that can help you? If you don't have the kind of support that you need, can you reach out to some people that you don't know and maybe develop a relationship with them and start to create a type of rapport that will help you get support from people that you have not had access to before? Because you do need access and you do need
Exactly.
people. Where can you start saving funds so that you
Mm-hmm.
can use your little monies in a way to help you launch the thing, build the thing, move the thing, like actually give the thing momentum and
Right.
energy? So does it mean that you need to, like cook 3 nights a week and save that going out money?
Mm-hmm.
Does it mean that you need to, like not change your shoe budget up? Like
Right.
take something out, redirect the money somewhere else. Like can you do that? Do you need to get a mentor? Like or something else like that. Like I have people, especially as I was, building my business over the years, I was able and fortunate to find people who were already very well established, and I didn't ask them to just be my mentor. I asked them to essentially sponsor me
Right.
because
Mm-hmm.
there were rooms that I wanted to be in. But if I had to keep paying to be in those rooms, I would have easily
Right.
spent $25,000 just going to events so that I could
Easy.
network, right? These were
Exactly.
people that, if it was a great cause, especially, they'd go ahead and buy a whole table, and I had a seat at it.
Wow.
They get to go ahead and have that whole table for their brand. They get to fill that table with people who maybe would not have had access to the event, but they're hustlers, they're extraordinary,
Mhm.
like innovators and whatnot. And they're an ally. They're
Right.
showing up as an ally, and they're doing what they can with a very low amount of actual like commitment on their part. They just had to go ahead and buy, a $5,000 table or a $10,000 table. That was nothing for them. It was a no commitment for them. It was a
Right.
way for them to invest in me without
Mm.
having to actually become an angel investor, so to speak,
Right.
or a VC, like in that
Mhm.
way. And so when you can create those relationships, that's where you start. That's how you start to get the thing together. That's where you begin, but you got to start where you are and build out from there. So sometimes the 2 years doesn't necessarily need to be researching the
Right.
market or researching the business. The 2 years maybe need to be building the relationships that are going to help you get into the rooms that you need to get into,
Exactly.
building the relationships that are going to help you have the support base that when it's time for you to put the book out,
Mm-hmm.
you can send a blast out to 1,000 people and say, hey, like, who can you all help me? I need you to post this, spread the word about that. That's maybe where the 2 years needs to go, and then actually like building the things that are going to help you leapfrog, as opposed to just staying in what I call just in that intellectual space with it. And there's only so much you can do while it's over here. It's intangible, right? Like that's why I even say write it out sometimes. You know, like I have a friend, Julian Ufano Leon, and he says, you write it out, it will come about, right?
It makes sense. Yep.
Because once you take it out of this, just it's nothing, it's just thought, right? It's just
Right.
consciousness, and it seems insurmountable. You write it out and it actually starts to become something very small. It's a capsule, you can hold it in the palm of your hand. It's not as big and daunting as you thought that it was, and you keep building from there, and next thing you know, you got 10,000 words, and next thing you know, you got 20,000 words, and then next thing you know, you got 35,000 words. You got a book. You know?
Yeah. I'm telling you. So you touched on something too, Joy, and that's what I tell people. You talked about people transcribing, your audio. So when I first started writing books, I used to just like to write it down, because me physically write, and I still do that a lot. Physically writing it kind of burns it in my brain. All right, it's a little easier. When I talk it, I'm a lot faster, and I get it transcribed, but it's easier. So I can create a book. I really can write a book if I really focused on it, probably in 30 days. And that's with the editing, not me doing it, but outsourcing, putting the thought down, letting somebody edit, and then somebody, outsource the transcribing. So I just want to say that to people, that it's not as daunting as it looks. When you mentioned that Twitter, I'm like, oh man, that was a great concept in terms of the content. In your book, you had a quote, and I don't know if this came from Twitter. Let me make sure I say it right. You're human. You deserve to become more than a brand. But you also said another quote, ego as a tool. Ego is either your tool or your master. Were those Twitter?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And that was actually when I started saying, okay, I think that I'm going to actually write the book. Because when I was first thinking about the book that decade ago, I had a completely different title in mind. I had like a different focus, the way that I was going to, talk about things. And as I just kept getting that authenticity question, and I was kind of monitoring and looking at what was going on social media overall in general, I said, I feel like I don't think I've seen anyone say this. Like I keep seeing people say things like, I am my brand, like my brand is me, like, and stuff like that. And I'm just like, but I think that you actually deserve to become more than a brand. So I actually tweeted out, you're human. You deserve to become more than a brand. Livy, I even wrote at one point, I'm more than a brand. I'm a legacy.
Right.
And those two tweets got huge response. And I mean, and people, and when I say huge response, I don't just mean people were commenting or, like retweeting it and things like that. I mean, people actually hit me up in direct messages.
That's what's
People were saying things like, essentially to encapsulate it, that they were going through existential crisis. That like just reading that brought them to tears. It took some bricks off. They just fell away. Like they were unburdened some sort of way. I said, okay, there's something here. There's something going on, even if it's not a real conversation in the zeitgeist with me.
Right. Yeah.
And then, those ego conversations, I feel like our egos, there's a lot going on. It's coming out of the wellness community, it's in the entrepreneurial community, it's all over the place in terms of, the conversation, where we're just really like, we're coming at our egos sideways, as if the enemy, the ego is the enemy, and the enemy is existing within you. I just personally don't believe that there's any part of me that is against me.
Right.
Some parts of me maybe are a little out of control.
Are they wilding out, huh? No.
They're acting up. They're trying to do some hood rat stuff, But if I just go ahead and have like a conversation, if it's part of my collaborative thought, I find that it's actually not against me. It's for me. It's just that it's got its own approach to being for me. So
Right.
when I started looking at my ego, I found a lot of times my ego was popping up when there was some kind of overactive, overprotective need that a part of
Okay.
me was feeling needed to be put into place, right?
Right.
Like, okay, this is a danger zone. We've kind of had something like this happen before. And the last
Mhm.
time this happened, everything went sideways and you got F in the A. So this is
Right.
what, like, here I am, here's the ego to the rescue. And I'm going to act all up so that you don't end up doing that thing, or I'm going to say some stuff to you so that you, like, walk in with a certain swagger to it and whatnot. It was just going out of control because my ego actually wanted to protect me. It wanted to do whatever it needed to do to keep me from being hurt or feeling away, getting mangled and embarrassed, right? So when
Right.
I actually started chasing that down and being like, okay, ego, like, what's up? Why did this
Right.
trigger you?
Hmm.
And then I just kind of realized, oh, okay, that's with my fear and, PTSD and things like that. Let me just calm down. Let me just put it into perspective.
Okay.
Let me listen to all the other things that are going on, and now let me listen to, like, what is really my inner voice, what is that saying? Because my ego isn't necessarily my inner voice, it's more part of the thought. It's
All right.
collaborative thought.
Wow.
It will pop up the same way that, that kid that called me the N word on the playground will occasionally pop up in my brain,
Hmm.
decades later. It's
Right.
not it's not real, it's just there, and it's part of how I'm processing.
Hmm.
So when I actually start to, like, move all that aside, okay, this thought can go over here, this thought can go over here, things get a little more quiet, and then I start to actually hear my voice.
Hmm.
And I'm like, oh, okay, this is what I want. This is what feels right to me. I really want to do this. Even if I'm scared, I still want to
Right.
try. I still want to lean into this. So that's what I mean by that ego. It's either ruling you or you're using it to help yourself understand, oh, wait, there's something going on. It can kind of be your canary in a coal mine
Right.
sometimes.
Right. That's great.
And when you're hearing it overreact and over respond and try to take over,
Hmm.
then you can have a conversation with yourself about, why is my ego trying to take over right now?
Yeah, that's powerful. You seem to be very self-aware. Um, where did that come from, or is that natural for you?
Lots of
You.
years of getting my butt kicked.
I hear that good old experience, huh?
Right, that good old experience, right?
Yeah.
Like, I am a strategist by nature. I'm a very strategic thinker. Apparently, face readers say this is what this high forehead here. I have a five head because I'm a very strategic thinker.
Okay.
And like, I do believe in strategy. Like, I'm one of those of, like, let's pray to God but row for the shore. Where is,
That's
let's
it.
calculate the shore. It's
Hmm.
like, make sure that the oars are working right in the water.
Exactly.
Like,
Just in
let's
case.
get there. And the whole time, let's pray as we're going whoosh.
Going right.
Okay, let's get through this. So it was very it was everything. It was like a fear response, and then at the same time very refreshing to understand how surrender started
Mm.
to play into some things. Like, I had moments in my career where it was the most brilliant, thought out, strategic campaign that we could have possibly put together and launched, right? It was perfectly produced and executed, and
Mm.
everything was lined up in terms of budget, and it just didn't get the response that we needed
Right.
because
Yeah.
the timing just wasn't there
Gotcha.
and the
Yeah.
community just wasn't there, and it just didn't resonate with people where they were, or something else, something even bigger and more pertinent popped up, and everybody's attention had to be focused on that, as opposed to this thing that you were trying to do that was important to you, and it was important work, but in the big scheme of human life it was frivolous
It
at
was
that
right.
point, you
Right.
know and so I had two choices. Either I was going to, like, sit there and feel away about it into perpetuity, or I had to learn how to, like, let some things go, and how to come back to myself, like, and listen to myself, and keep staying energetic and fiery, like,
Right.
in the right ways, like, even right now, this is the weirdest time in history that I've ever been alive for.
Mm-hmm.
This
It's
is strange.
crazy.
Like 9/11 was weird, and this is weirder than that,
Yeah.
right? Ebola was weird, and this is weirder than that. Like this is the weirdest time in history that I've gotten to witness and live
Right.
through and live within. But
Yeah.
at the same time, there's something, I have my moments, of course, like I have better days, I have the good days, and I have bad days.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something that I started realizing a long time ago, which is that all times are uncertain.
Definitely. That's it. That's it.
You know,
Yeah.
certainty is just this thing that we like to believe we have
Mm-hmm.
so that we can shut some thought down. Otherwise, you're obsessing about everything all the time. You can go ahead and like live life. You can take a step and not worry about the, stepping on the crack, breaking your back type of thing.
Right.
So you have to have some certainty at some point in order to even live and be alive. It's just part of human nature. But certainty is always an illusion. It's
Yeah.
just something to help us feel good. It's something to help our egos,
Yeah.
feel good. And
Help
if
us move
you
forward.
kind of, yeah, if you can kind of let that go, then you start to realize that confidence isn't necessarily a requisite for action.
Right. Now
That
that's
go
powerful.
ahead and move forward. And as you do the thing and you become more qualified by doing, you will acquire the confidence that you were seeking in the beginning.
Right.
The
Yeah.
confidence does not this is it have to be there for you to go ahead and do it and move. You have to at some point, if you've been learning and you've
Right.
been a student, you've been acquiring wisdom, you've been acquiring knowledge, you've been acquiring your skill set.
Mm-hmm.
And heck, let's be honest, if you were born into a certain body, you probably always had to be exceptional.
Exactly.
Mediocrity wasn't ever an option for you.
That's right.
So you already have been overqualified for this for years. You've been
Right.
overproducing,
Right.
okay? For
Yeah.
decades, right?
That's
So
it.
at some point, you have to trust that you have the skill set to figure it out and that things will pop up that you cannot plan for or calculate toward, that you don't have a crystal ball, you will not know. You
Right.
will constantly have to pivot.
Mm-hmm.
You will constantly have to re-engage. You will constantly have to ask things of your community. You will constantly have to build relationships. You will constantly have to network. You're never done with it. Like you will constantly have to figure out new paths for yourself. And you just have to go ahead and move forward and do it and deal with it as it comes about. You strategize through what you can, but then you trust that you have the skill set to figure it out in real time as it pops up. And that's what we saw. There were a good amount of people that they went ahead, they crunched, the numbers, they got the team together, they pivoted when quarantine started.
Yeah.
They got everything together the way they needed to, and they are still functioning not at the same capacity
Right.
that they were before, but they are still doing something. As a matter of fact, they're doing something that's actually really beneficial and on point for what is needed right now for
Right.
people,
Exactly.
which means that they're going to be one of those brands, one of those companies, one of those entrepreneurs, one of those small businesses that people remember, not just right now, but when we get through this, people are going to remember how they showed up,
Right.
right?
That's
How they contributed, how they benefited. And that's what everyone is going to be looking at right now, whether you're a person, a place, or a thing.
right.
Everyone, okay.
Exactly.
Everyone is going to be looking at everything and basically being like, how are you showing up right now?
That's great. Joy, I don't want to hold you too much longer. I have a couple questions for you. Before we want you to give out all of your contact information and obviously tell us how we can get your book. In your book, what is the one takeaway? If somebody said, Joy, I don't know if I'm going to be able to read the whole book, but give me the one takeaway from this book, what would that be, the most important takeaway that you would tell that person that you'll get from reading the book?
That you can start where you are.
Cool.
that you can start where you are. Like, and I talk a lot about media and marketing, of course, because of the nature of the book. And I
Right.
think that the one of the main things that just overwhelms people is they look at someone who already has like a million followers,
Right.
and they think that they've got to go from they just opened the account
Right.
to a million
Right.
followers
Right.
within a week or something. And because they're not, sometimes not having appreciation, but not having understanding for the process of what went into building that million
Exactly.
followers. You've
Yeah.
got to start where you are. There is no more powerful direction and coordinate that you have than right here. And
Hmm.
you can always do something right here. And I think that's the thing that, over the years, as I've done everything from speaking engagements to IG lives, what has
Hmm.
constantly eluded people is the audacity to believe that they can start where they are.
Right. That's it. That's great. That's excellent advice. So you can apply that to entrepreneurship. You can apply it obviously to yourself as an individual. And you're right. I always used to use the analogy. I used to tell my kids, I say, time is going to go by. God willing, we'll be here. So in 12 months from today, it's going to be that date. The question is, what have you done in those 12 months? Now, you can sit around and not do anything, or you can start moving on the path that you know you're designed to be on. And so the time is going to go by. You can count on that. Time is going to continue to move forward. What are you going to do with it? And when you continue to wait, for what are you waiting for? So I love that. Start where you are. It's funny, when we came on, it's been 5 years since you were on the first time.
Yeah.
Uh, Tell us what your transformation. I'm gonna close out with this question. Tell us what some of your transformation was in that 5 year time, as to what you were doing then versus what you're doing now, and your ideology or thought process. Is it still the same, or has it changed over those 5 years?
I've gotten more refined over
Okay.
the past 5 years. So it was there, but
Hmm.
I definitely have acquired more vocabulary and knowledge around what I'm doing and why I'm doing it and why it's so important. Like when we were talking 5 years ago, that's when I first really started dabbling into building media platforms,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
Storytelling in that way. And for people that they don't know this part about my history, like I kind of transitioned from publicity into actual media and that side of the conversation and producing more content.
Hmm.
And I have a deeper respect for content than I've ever had. And I
Hmm.
have a deeper respect for the media system than I ever have had. Even though right now it's very easy to look at media and just be like, this is a bunch of nonsense.
Right. Exactly. You look at some of that media out there. Oh Lord.
Right?
Yeah.
But I know too that I can't imagine what this moment in time would be like right now if we had not had the ability to spread information to each other across continents, across oceans,
Right.
across the country. I don't know what it would have been like in California if we had not been able to have conversations with what our friends were going through in New York,
Right.
right? Like I don't know what we would be looking at if it had not been for media. Media is all around us. It's in everything. Everything is messaging.
Right.
The clothes that we choose to wear and how we wear them, right? To
Mhm.
the colors that we use in a logo, the font, the graffiti on the wall, the billboards, everything. And I'm really starting to see that the universe of that in a more refined way and a more appreciative way, and seeing how important it is to have more inclusive storytelling,
Right. Yeah.
more inclusive platforms for voice than
Mhm.
ever. You know, I am not one of those people who looks down on Black Twitter. I think there's a lot of extraordinary things that have happened and got called to the carpet because Black Twitter exists, and
Mhm.
other forms of of Twitter, like Native American Twitter, right, and Latinx Twitter. Like that is it's a way for people to organize voice, and I so appreciate that. And I didn't have that depth of it
Mhm.
5 years ago. It
Gotcha.
was there a little bit, but over the past 5 years, it's so much more refined. It's deeper. It's almost, um, I don't know, it's almost otherworldly to me.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's that experience. And at that point, you started where you were right then, right? And now look at you.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
once again, it's the maturation. And I like that. So you're more refined. So your thought process, your ideologies, the things that you're doing, do you find that you're more aligned now, so to speak, with what you were put here to do?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, cool,
You know,
cool.
like I started feeling really 2 years ago when I started thinking about the book because I had to think about it first. Right? It was like
Yeah,
2 years ago when I started thinking about the book. I was thinking about it because I was doing more public speaking. And
right,
as I've been doing so much more public speaking, like now it is actually like a legitimate part of my business and my model of what I do and how I show up every day. I'm either constantly giving voice to something or I'm, moderating something. I'm creating the atmosphere for a conversation to be had, especially where media entertainment is concerned and that type of storytelling and entrepreneurship, and media entertainment in particular, when you're entrepreneurial in those industries, these are industries that have specifically been thriving on the idea of scarcity,
right,
right? And
right.
there not being enough to have proper seats at the table.
Hmm.
So I've even been better able to figure out how to use media to build your own table,
Right, exactly.
right? So I just have a far deeper understanding of it. I understand better too how to use momentum that already exists, how to not swim upstream, but just
Hmm.
redirect the stream.
Right,
And wow, is that an energy saver? You
definitely.
So these are things that I talk about in the book too, because what I see a lot of times is that people just exhaust themselves again, not starting where they are, trying to leapfrog to a destination,
Right.
thinking that they've got to spend $2,500 over here and $5,000 over there to get
Mhm.
to this place when they didn't actually build the other foundations for themselves in terms of like community and support and collaborators and things like that. And all of this is part of that brand conversation, and it's all part of that legacy conversation for me. So that's why I just took time to talk about all these things in pockets, but also how it's interwoven because it is a holistic
Right.
journey.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely.
Entrepreneurship is a holistic journey.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And I like the word refine. That it's over that 5 year period. So that means your maturation is happening, you're
Yeah.
progressing and you're honing into where you're eventually going to be. I don't think the process ever stops. I think we just keep, refining and maturing as we move forward. So you're doing tremendous things. Joy, tell us how we can get a hold of your book. Give us your social media contact information so the BEB family can support you like we always do.
Okay. So you can always find me on any social platform directly through the handle Do It in Public, all one word, Do It in Public. And then I have a community that I am building called Hey Superjoy, like
Okay.
Hey Superjoy.
Right.
And that is the community that we're building to really to help ambitious people build a cultural legacy. So we'll be building that, like over the next year.
Okay.
And then the book Beyond Brand is on pretty much any digital platform that you can find it that sells books. So Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart, Google Books, the whole shebang bang. And it's available as an ebook as well. And I'm, as we speak, recording the audiobook.
Cool.
So the audiobook will be out later this year also.
That is great. Well, we definitely appreciate your time. And I'm telling you right now, like I said, I didn't go linearly, but I'm jumping around through here, and it's a tremendous book. And we appreciate you sharing the time with the BEB family. Those insights, man, this is amazing. This is even better than the first time you were on. So,
Thank you.
so I
Well,
see
that's
that
what we
maturation.
want to do. We want to keep improving
That's
over the years.
that that is it. So, do you have any events or anything coming up? I know we're in this quarantine type of situation, but do you have anything is coming up that the BEB family can be a part of? Any speaking or live stream events or anything?
There is actually, if you go ahead and follow me on Instagram, I do
Okay.
live streams once a week.
Okay, cool.
Just little gems. I either jump on there by myself, or I'm interviewing someone else,
Okay.
and we're talking about usually creativity, like storytelling, design, entrepreneurship.
Okay.
Um, so you definitely follow me through that. I have an event. I don't know if this will be out in time, April 29th.
Okay.
Uh, so you might miss that
Yeah.
when this
Yeah.
goes
Yeah.
out.
We'll skip that one. Yeah.
Let's give that one.
Right, right.
But also too, if you go ahead and connect with me on Instagram, I
Mhm.
will keep you updated about an event that I'll be doing in May in relation to the book with me and one of my colleagues in New York. So that will be coming up right at the beginning of May.
Well, I want to thank you once again, Joy. We appreciate you being here.
I
And
appreciate being here.
anytime that you want to come on, you got a new book coming out, anything, please let us know. We definitely appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
All righty. Man, that was a dynamic interview with Miss Joy Donnell, author of Beyond Brand, Master Your Power, Joy in Media to Live Your Legacy. Make sure you do what we do, family. Go support Joy. You can find this book on Amazon and all of your other major platforms. Beyond Brand by Miss Joy Donnell. Now, I just want to give two quick takeaways. Number one, something Joy said was start where you are. And that's very important. Many times we think we have to get to a certain level before we can even start anything. And obviously that's not correct. So you can start where you are. Wherever you are today, you can start on your path to entrepreneurship. You can start on your path to whatever you're trying to do. So you don't need to wait until you get to a certain point, because guess what? You may never get to that point, and then you'll never start whatever you need to start. Something else she said was passions give us energy. Our passion gives us energy. So it's just like when you're doing something you're passionate about, it's not work. And that's why I always talk about pinpoint and monetize your genius, which is the intersection between your passion and your talent. So if you're doing something you're passionate about, family, you have energy. It energizes you. And so that's how people can be successful as an entrepreneur, because even though the road may be tough and there are going to be roadblocks, bumps in the roads, all that type of stuff, if you have that energy to overcome it, then you'll be successful. And a lot of times that energy comes from your passion. Passion gives you energy. Now, before we close on out, I'm not going to repeat all of my social media contact information and all of my resource links. Just go to bebconnect.com, bebconnect.com, like Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, bebconnect.com. Also, I want to give you a teaser on next week's show. Man, we got a hot one next week. My man Sean Prez from Power Moves Inc., former marketing manager with Bad Boy Records and worked side by side with Diddy as he built Bad Boy Records. We got a great interview with him next week, so definitely stay tuned for that. And before we close out, I say it each and every weekend, family, please continue to spread the word about the podcast, the YouTube channel, the blog, the resource links, and everything. This is a movement, guys, and it's all about building an economic power base in the Black community. And once again, every week, this show, we get more and more downloads and views because of you, the BEB family. Please continue to spread the word however you can about everything we're doing, and share the social media posts and things like that, because we're trying to get this good word out there to as many folk as we can. Love you guys. I'll see you same time next week. Peace.